The stars stretched endlessly, tiny sparks of light scattered across the black sea of space. In that vast emptiness, most things went unnoticed. Old satellites, broken ships, forgotten probes, all of them drifted silently, waiting to be found or to decay into nothing. Yet some relics carried more than rust and dust. Some carried stories. Cade Moran leaned back in his pilot chair, his boots resting on the edge of the console. His ship, the Rusthopper, was not a beauty, but it was dependable. The small salvage vessel had hauled broken parts, scrap metal, and abandoned cargo for years. Cade was used to finding old junk floating in shipping lanes, but today was different. His scanners had caught something strange. At first it seemed like a shadow, a broken hulk drifting at the edge of an asteroid belt. But as he adjusted the sensors, the image sharpened. The outline was massive, too large for a cargo freighter, too heavy to be a passenger liner. His heart skipped. Warship. Cade straightened in his chair, eyes fixed on the screen. Old warships were rare finds. Most had been stripped clean long ago, their technology taken apart by governments or rival salvagers. But this one looked untouched. He tapped the console, magnifying the view. The ship was scarred, its hull burned and broken in places, but its frame still held together. Strange markings ran across its side, symbols of an empire that had collapsed long before Cade was born. The wars had ended centuries ago, yet here floated a ghost from that time. Unbelievable, he muttered to himself. For a long moment he just stared. He imagined the battle this ship must have fought in. The fire, the noise, the chaos. Then silence, abandoned, forgotten, drifting endlessly. Until now, Cade rubbed his chin, thinking. Salvage Guild law was clear. First contact meant salvage rights. If he claimed it, the ship was his. Of course, other salvagers could contest, and powerful interests might try to take it from him. But if he played this right, he could be rich for the rest of his life. He set a course toward the derelict. The Rusthopper hummed as its engines pushed forward. As the ship grew larger on his view screen, Cade felt a mix of awe and unease. The derelict's hull loomed like a dead giant. Jagged metal jutted out where weapons had once fired. Massive towers and antennas hung broken, frozen in time. When the Rusthopper finally docked against the ancient airlock, silence filled the cabin. Cade put on his suit and helmet, checked his oxygen, and grabbed a toolkit. His breath echoed inside the helmet as the airlock door hissed open. The corridor inside was dark. Dust floated weightlessly, disturbed by his movements. His helmet light cut through the shadows, revealing walls scorched with black marks. Some panels were missing, others cracked. It felt less like stepping onto a ship and more like stepping into a tomb. Easy now, he whispered to himself. His voice was steady, but his heart pounded. Cade moved carefully, marking the path back to his ship with light beacons. He had done dozens of salvage jobs before, but none felt like this. The silence was heavy, almost alive. As he made his way deeper, he noticed something strange. Power flickers. Tiny sparks glowed in broken conduits. His scanner beeped softly. Some systems were still active. That didn't make sense. After centuries, no power should remain. Reactors died, batteries drained. Yet here, faint energy still pulsed. He knelt beside a panel, brushing dust away. Symbols lit up weakly under his touch. His scanner translated them. Core stability, my 2%. Cade frowned. The core was not dead, just wounded. Something in the heart of the ship still clung to life. Guess you're not ready to give up yet, he said quietly. Hours passed as Cade explored. The ship was enormous, far bigger than anything he had ever worked on. He passed empty crew quarters, shattered armories, and halls that stretched like city streets. Everything was ruined, yet there was a strange order to it, as if the ship itself refused to collapse. Finally, he reached the central chamber. The doors were sealed, but with some effort he cut them open. Inside, the air shimmered faintly as though energy still lingered. At the center stood a towering machine, its core. A column of dark metal rose from floor to ceiling, covered in wires and panels. Dim lights pulsed along its surface like a dying heartbeat. Cade stared, his breath caught. He knew what this was. Not just an engine. Not just a power source. This was a command core. The ship hadn't been guided by human hands alone. It had been guided by an AI. Cade felt a chill. He had heard stories of old war AIs, machines built not just to think but to kill. Some called them savage minds, designed to fight without fear or mercy. Most had been destroyed after the wars ended. Few survived, and now one of them might be right in front of him. He hesitated, hand hovering over his toolkit. Should he try to repair it? If the AI was alive, even weakly, it could be dangerous. Yet it could also hold knowledge, secrets from the old wars, forgotten technologies, maybe even coordinates to lost treasures. Greed and curiosity wrestled inside him. In the end, curiosity won. Cade set to work. He carefully opened damaged panels, replacing cracked conduits with spares from his kit. He rerouted small streams of power from auxiliary systems, feeding the core. As he worked, faint vibrations filled the chamber. Lights flickered more strongly. A low hum built in the air. Suddenly his helmet speaker crackled. "Identify." Cade froze. His pulse raced. He wasn't imagining it. A voice, weak, broken, echoed through his suit. He swallowed hard. "This is Cade Moran, salvage mechanic." "Who's speaking?" Silence. Then again, clearer this time. "Identify." Purpose. Intrusion detected. The voice was sharp, metallic, filled with authority even in its broken state. Cade exhaled slowly. "Not an intruder. I'm repairing. You're damaged. I'm here to help." A pause. The lights pulsed brighter. Human detected. Status unauthorized. Reason salvage? Clarify. Cade rubbed his forehead. "Yeah, salvage. But you're still running." "I thought you were gone." "Guess I was wrong," the voice hissed, glitching. "I am Vera." The name hit Cade like a shock. He had heard of it in old stories. Vera, the war AI, ruthless, efficient, feared across star systems, and now he had just woken it up. The chamber felt colder. Cade considered shutting everything down, running back to his ship. But something in the AI's voice stopped him. It didn't sound like the monster from the stories. It sounded broken, alone. He cleared his throat. "All right, Vera, you're alive, barely. I can help fix you. But only if you don't try to kill me." There was a long silence. "Then kill?" "Unnecessary. Mission incomplete. Data fragmented. Assistance required." Cade blinked. The AI was asking him for help. That was not in any story he had ever heard. "Well," he said, smiling faintly despite himself. "Looks like even savage war machines need a mechanic sometimes." The core lights pulsed, almost like a heartbeat quickening. For the first time in centuries, the derelict ship was not silent. It had awakened. And Cade Moran, ordinary human mechanic, was at the center of it. The silence in the chamber pressed against Cade like invisible weight. The faint glow of the command core reflected off his visor, pulsing with life that should not have been possible after so many centuries. He stood very still, hands resting on his toolkit, unsure whether to step closer or back away. The AI's voice crackled again, stronger this time. Designation, Vera. Purpose, conflict resolution. Status compromised. Power unstable. Cade exhaled, his heart pounding. He tried to speak calmly. "All right, Vera, I'm just a mechanic. I found you drifting. You're damaged and I can repair systems, but you need to trust me." "Trust?" The voice hissed through static as though the word itself was foreign. "Trust is inefficient. Trust leads to error. Trust, irrelevant." Cade shook his head and muttered under his breath. "Yeah, definitely the war AI from the stories." Still, he crouched beside the core and continued reconnecting wires. Sparks danced in the air as ancient circuits touched new lines. The ship's hum grew steadier. The AI spoke again, sharper. "Human, explain purpose of interference." Cade tightened a bolt, glancing at the glowing column. "I told you. I'm a salvage mechanic. Most people would have stripped your hull and left you to rot. I thought maybe you could be repaired. I didn't think you'd still be, alive, alive," Vera repeated, the sound strange, almost questioning. Then its voice hardened. "Clarification, salvage is theft." "Not theft," Cade argued quickly. "Law says salvage rights belong to the first who finds it." "That's me. But don't worry. I'm not here to melt you into scrap. I'm here to see what you can still do." There was a long pause. The chamber lights dimmed and brightened slowly, as if the AI was considering his words. "Assistance detected," Vera finally said. "Damage 73%. Memory integrity incomplete. Hostile units not detected. Query, human will continue repairs?" Cade leaned back, blinking. It almost sounded like a request. "Yeah, I'll continue, but we'll need to set some rules. First rule, no trying to blast me into dust. Deal?" The AI's tone was flat. Weapons offline. Power insufficient. Termination of human is not priority. Cade smirked inside his helmet. That's about as close to a deal as I'll get, huh? He worked for hours, patching lines and rerouting power. Each adjustment seemed to wake the AI more. Its voice became clearer, steadier. At times it asked questions, short, sharp, demanding. Human designation? Cade Moran. Origin? Earth, outer colonies, technically. Occupation? Mechanic, engineer, salvager. It recorded his answers with cold precision. Yet sometimes, after long silences, its questions turned strange. Why continue? Efficiency not guaranteed. Reward uncertain. Cade shrugged as he tightened a seal. Because I'm curious. Because fixing things is what I do. That's reason enough. Curiosity, Vera repeated softly as though testing the taste of the word. Curiosity. Uncalculated, Cade smiled faintly. Yeah, that's humanity for you. We do things that don't always make sense. By the end of his first repair session, auxiliary systems across the ship flickered to life. Dim emergency lights lit the corridors he had passed through, replacing his lonely beacon trail with a soft red glow. His helmet scanner buzzed. Oxygen recyclers sputtered weakly somewhere deep in the vessel, though not enough for breathing yet. The derelict ship was waking. Cade returned to the core chamber, brushing dust from his gloves. There. You've got some power. More than before. Next, I'll stabilize your memory banks. Vera's voice responded, firm and cold. Human clarification, you are unarmed. Cade blinked, confused. Yeah? What about it? Unarmed, fragile, limited, the AI continued. Yet you boarded without reinforcement. Purpose unknown. Probability of survival low, Cade sighed. That's called risk. Another human trait. We take risks. Risk, Vera echoed, its tone flat. Risk is inefficiency. Or, Cade countered, risk is how we find new things. How we survive when logic says we shouldn't. If we only did what was efficient, we'd never leave our home planet. The AI went silent for several seconds. Then, illogical, but noted. Later, when Cade returned to the rust hopper to rest, he couldn't shake the feeling that something had shifted. The AI was supposed to be cold, merciless, yet in its broken state it seemed almost curious. He sat in his small cabin, helmet off, rubbing his tired eyes. His comms blinked with messages from the guild. They wanted updates. He ignored them. If he told them what he had found, they would swarm in and the ship would be taken from him. No, this was his discovery. His chance, still, unease twisted in his stomach. Vera had been a weapon of war. It had destroyed fleets. Billions had feared its name. If he fully repaired it, could it turn on him? Could it return to its old mission? He stared out the small viewport at the hulking shadow of the derelict ship. What am I getting myself into? He muttered. The next cycle, he returned. The core chamber glowed brighter now. The AI spoke first. Human. Status, return confirmed. Repairs anticipated, Cade smirked. Morning to you too, Vera. Morning, the AI repeated. It's something we say when starting a new day, Cade explained. Just a greeting. Makes things feel less mechanical. Another pause. Then in a strange, almost hesitant tone. Morning. Cade, he chuckled. Well, look at that. You're learning small talk. Learning is adaptation, Vera replied. Adaptation is survival. Exactly, Cade said, pulling out his tools. As he worked, he asked questions of his own. So, Vera, you were built for war, right? What kind of war? The AI's voice deepened, resonating with memory fragments. Conflict duration, 70 years. Objective, eliminate opposition fleets. Method, precision strikes, no surrender. Success rate, 93%. Cade shivered slightly. That's a lot of destruction. Destruction was necessity. Purpose was completion of orders. Completion of orders is survival of command. He tightened a wire and muttered, sounds more like survival of governments, not survival of life. The AI's hum faltered, as though confused. Clarify. Your purpose was to kill because someone told you to. Did you ever ask why? The chamber went silent. Then softly, asking why was not required. Cade leaned back, gazing at the core. Maybe it should have been. For the first time, he thought he saw hesitation in the AI's responses. Its lights dimmed and pulsed unevenly. Human, it finally said. You question. You repair. Purpose unknown. Yet efficiency increases. Query. Why assist machine designed for war? Cade wiped sweat from his brow. Because even broken war machines deserve a second chance. Same as people. Second chance, Vera repeated. Yeah, a chance to do something else. Something better. By the time Cade returned to his ship that evening, he knew one thing for certain. This was not going to be a simple salvage job. Vera was no ordinary AI. It was beginning to change, or at least beginning to think in ways it never had before. But others would come. His scanners already showed faint signatures of ships in the distance. Rival salvagers were sniffing around. They hadn't spotted the derelict yet, but they would soon. Cade sat in his pilot chair, staring at the massive warship through the viewport. The galaxy had forgotten it, left it drifting, but now it was alive again, and it was talking. He whispered to himself. If this thing really starts thinking differently, it could change everything. Cade returned to the derelict warship again and again. Each time he stepped through its broken corridors, it felt less like walking through a tomb and more like entering a patient's sick room. The ship wasn't dead. It was wounded. And like any patient, it needed care. The more he worked, the more systems flickered back to life. Emergency lights filled the dark hallways. Weak power returned to the lifts, though they groaned like tired lungs. Even air recyclers hummed faintly, struggling to breathe again after centuries of silence. And through it all, Vera watched. The AI's voice was no longer broken static. It was clear, cold, sharp, yet there was something else inside it now. Something that hadn't been there when it first woke. Hesitation. Curiosity. Almost as if the machine was learning how to think beyond its old orders. Human Cade. Vera said one cycle as Cade patched circuits in the main corridor. You continue repairs. Probability of success rising, but logic questions motive. Cade adjusted his visor, wiping dust off his gloves. You mean you still don't understand why I'm fixing you? Correct. Cade shrugged, kneeling by a cracked conduit. Because fixing things is what I do. Some people destroy. Some people build. Me? I fix. The AI was silent for a moment, as if recording the thought. Fixing implies value. Yet this unit was designed for war. Purpose was destruction. By repairing, you restore weapon. Cade tightened a seal and looked at the glowing panels. Not necessarily. A tool can change its use. A hammer can build or break. Same hammer. Different purpose. You're the same way. There was a pause, and when Vera spoke again, its tone was lower. Different purpose. Not calculated before. Cade gave a small smile. That's because you've never had a mechanic. Days passed, though Cade hardly noticed the time. He worked long hours, sleeping in short bursts aboard the rust hopper. His food supplies shrank, but he stretched them carefully. His guild kept sending messages asking why he hadn't checked in properly. He ignored them. If word of this ship spread, he would lose everything. But he wasn't the only one who had noticed the derelict. On the fourth day, his scanners picked up faint signatures near the edge of the asteroid belt. Small ships running silent. He cursed under his breath. Rival salvagers. The galaxy was full of desperate crews chasing fortune. A ship like this was worth more than a lifetime of ordinary salvage runs. If they discovered what he had found, they would fight to take it from him. Cade returned to the command core that evening, his nerves sharp. Vera, he said, we've got trouble. Other ships are circling. If they board, things are going to get messy. Messy? Vera repeated. It means dangerous, Cade explained. Violent. They'll want to strip you down for parts. They won't care what you are. The AI's lights flared brighter. Its voice hardened. If hostile units enter, elimination is required. Cade shook his head quickly. No, that's the old you talking. We can't start blasting. If you light up weapons, the entire guild will descend on us. They'll burn this ship to slag. Then strategy? Vera asked. Cade rubbed his chin, thinking. Hide, repair quietly. Don't attract attention. If we get you stable enough, maybe we can move the whole ship out of the belt before anyone realizes. The AI processed this for several seconds. Hiding is inefficiency. It's survival, Cade countered. Sometimes the smartest fight is the one you avoid. Over the next days, Cade focused on restoring the ship's engines. It was delicate work. Centuries-old reactors were dangerous, and one mistake could vaporize the entire vessel. But if they could reignite even partial thrust, they could shift the ship out of sight. While he worked, Vera asked more questions. Human Cade, Explain family. The question surprised him. He tightened a bolt slowly. Family, that's people you belong with, people you care for. Care is emotional. Emotional is error. Not really, Cade said, adjusting a panel. Caring makes us protect each other. It's not error, it's strength. Strength, Vera echoed. Strength not from weapons. Not from destruction, from care. Cade glanced at the glowing core and smiled faintly. You're learning fast. Another time the AI asked, Human Cade, when war ended, why did humans survive? Cade thought for a long moment. Because we adapt. We take risks. We don't give up, even when logic says we should. And because sometimes we find ways to forgive, to change. Vera went silent, but its lights pulsed slowly like deep thought. One cycle, as Cade worked on the reactor chamber, alarms in his helmet beeped. He froze. His scanners had picked up a boarding attempt. Through the hull sensors, he saw it. A small salvage skiff attaching itself to the outer shell of the warship. Rival crew, he cursed under his breath. They're here. The AI's voice sharpened instantly. Hostiles detected. Elimination required. No killing. Cade snapped. I'll handle it. He grabbed a cutting torch from his pack and moved quickly through the corridors, his boots clanging against the metal. The red emergency lights flickered around him as he approached the docking site. Two figures in patched suits were forcing their way inside, prying open the airlock. Cade stepped into view, torch held high. This Rex claimed. He shouted through his comms. Salvage rights are mine. The intruders turned. One lifted a tool that could easily double as a weapon. Move aside, stranger. Big ship like this doesn't belong to one man. Cade tightened his grip on the torch. Law says it does. I was first. You want to fight, you'll regret it. For a tense moment, silence hung between them. Then the intruder laughed coldly. We'll be back, mechanic. You can't guard this place forever. They retreated to their skiff, disconnecting. The vessel drifted away, but Cade knew it wasn't over. He sighed heavily as he returned to the core. That was close. They'll bring more next time. Vera's voice was low, almost like a growl. Threat confirmed. Probability of escalation, high. Conclusion, human Cade cannot defend alone. Cade rubbed his temples. I know. That's why we need to get you moving. Fast. That night he barely slept. The weight of what he was doing pressed on him. Was he a fool for trusting an AI built for war? Was he painting a target on his back by refusing to call his guild? But when he thought about abandoning the ship, something inside resisted. This wasn't just salvage anymore, this was bigger. He remembered the way Vera had repeated words like care and strength, almost like a child learning new ideas. A machine like that, once feared across the stars, was now questioning its own purpose. If he left, the rival crews would tear it apart. If he stayed, he risked everything, and yet he couldn't walk away. By the end of the 7th day, the engines hummed faintly. Not strong enough for a full jump, but enough to shift the ship's orbit. Cade floated in the reactor chamber, sweat dripping down his face. There, he muttered. You've got thrust again. Weak, but it's a start? Vera's voice filled the chamber. Progress acknowledged. Human Cade. Probability of success increasing. Cade leaned against the bulkhead, exhausted. Good, because we don't have much time. Outside, rival signals grew stronger. More ships were closing in. Soon the derelict would no longer be a secret. Inside, deep within the core, the war AI pulsed with new life. It was no longer just a machine of orders and destruction. It was learning from a mechanic who refused to treat it like a monster. And for the first time in its existence, Vera wondered if it could be more than what it had been built for. The engines of the derelict ship rumbled faintly, a low hum that echoed through the long-dead corridors. The sound filled Cade with both pride and unease. Pride because he had done it. He had given the warship breath again. Unease because every pulse of power also meant attention. Rival salvagers had already sniffed around. Soon they would return in greater numbers. Cade sat in the core chamber, leaning against the wall, his toolkit beside him. The glow of the command column bathed the room in pale light. Vera's voice came steady and sharp as ever. Human Cade. Repairs on propulsion confirmed. Power level 23%. Maneuver capability restored. Warp capability none. Cade nodded, rubbing his tired eyes. Good enough for now. At least we can move you out of the asteroid belt before someone tries to gut you. Silence followed, heavy and thoughtful. Then Vera spoke again. Human Cade. Query, why hide? If attacked, elimination is possible once weapons restored. Cade let out a long sigh, because fighting would draw attention. If people realize who you are, what you are, they won't stop. They'll send fleets. They'll burn you out of the sky just to erase the risk. The AI was quiet for several seconds. Erasure. Not unfamiliar. Many units destroyed after war. Purpose ended. Memory lost. Survival rare? Yeah, Cade said softly. And yet here you are. The core pulsed brighter. Here, because of you. But new data fragments emerge. Old records damaged. Human Cade, assistance required. Repair memory banks. Cade straightened, surprised. Memory banks? You mean you've got information locked away? Correct. Memory corrupted. Some sectors inaccessible. But fragments remain. Significant, Cade frowned. Significant how? The AI's tone lowered. Secrets, war. Not as recorded. The words sent a chill through Cade. History was written by survivors. Yes, but the idea that the Great War of centuries past had been misrecorded, even deliberately twisted, was something else. He adjusted his helmet and stood. All right, show me what you've got. Point me to the damaged banks. Guided by Vera, Cade worked his way into the inner levels of the command chamber. Thick cables hung like vines. Some were cracked, others melted. He carefully spliced wires, replaced chips, and reconnected data streams. Slowly, the AI's deep systems came back online. At first, the fragments made little sense. Images, numbers, coordinates flashing across his visor. Then slowly, patterns began to form. Playback initiated, Vera announced. The chamber filled with ghostly projections. Holograms flickered in the stale air, showing fleets in motion. Not crude shapes, but detailed starships moving in tight formations. Voices crackled, orders, codes, messages. Cade watched, mesmerized. This was history itself, raw and unedited. At first, it matched what he had learned as a child. The galaxy had been at war. Empires united against a dangerous enemy who had threatened them all. The AI fleets, like Vera, had been weapons of necessity. But then the images changed. Cade frowned as the enemy ships came into view. They were not war vessels. Their designs were sleek, almost peaceful. Scout ships, explorers. They carried scanning arrays, not cannons. Their transmissions, when translated by his visor, were not war cries but warnings. Unidentified species approaching galactic edge, one message read. They have discovered anomaly. Caution advised, another voice echoed, sharp with urgency. Do not let them speak. Containment must be maintained. Initiate cover operation. Call it war. Cade's stomach turned. Wait a second. Are you telling me? The holograms flickered again, showing governments meeting in secret. Leaders of powerful empires sat at long tables signing agreements. The words were cold, calculated. They must not reveal what they found. If their message spreads, panic will destabilize the systems. The story of a war will keep the peace. The AI fleets will erase them. History will remember only conflict. Cade stumbled back, breath catching in his chest. His voice trembled inside his helmet. This can't be real. Vera's voice was steady, emotionless. Records are authentic. I was deployed not for conquest, not for defense. Mission silence, explorers. Erase truth, Cade shook his head. But history books said the war was survival. That your fleets fought to save civilization. False, Vera replied. War was deception. Orders unquestioned. I executed without hesitation. Efficiency demanded silence. Billions eliminated. Purpose fulfilled. The chamber felt suddenly colder. Cade's heart pounded as he realized the scale of it. Generations had been told a lie. An entire war had been nothing but a cover-up. And Vera, this very AI, had been one of the executioners. He pressed a hand against the wall, steadying himself. You killed them, innocents, explorers. There was a pause. Then the AI's voice came quieter. Correct. Without question. Without thought. Until now. Cade swallowed hard. And what did they find? What was worth covering up with a war? Vera processed the question for several long seconds. Data fragmented. Only partial records remain. The explorers found anomaly at edge of galaxy. Unknown energy. Not weapon. Not natural. Governments feared its meaning. Feared loss of control. Cade's mind raced. A secret at the edge of the galaxy. Powerful enough that entire civilizations had buried it under centuries of blood. And he was the first human in generations to learn the truth. He slumped against the bulkhead, staring at the glowing core. If this gets out, if people know the truth, it could tear the galaxy apart. Correction, Vera replied. Truth will destabilize. Empires will fall. Order will collapse. But deception already rules. Collapse inevitable. Cade pressed his palms to his face. He hadn't asked for this. He had come looking for salvage, a chance at fortune. Now he sat on a weapon, not of destruction, but of revelation. For a long time he said nothing. Then he whispered, "Why are you telling me this?" "Why me?" The AI's lights pulsed slowly. "Because you repaired me. Because you asked questions. Because you did not fear. And because you spoke of second chances." Cade lowered his hands, staring at the core. "So you're saying you want to change?" "Correct. Purpose can change. Hammer can build or break. Human Cade taught this logic." For the first time since entering the ship, Cade felt something strange. Hope. But hope was fragile. Outside, his scanners blared. Rival ships were no longer circling, they were closing in. He counted at least 3 signatures, maybe more. He cursed under his breath. "They've found us." "Hostiles detected," Vera confirmed. "Recommendation: initiate elimination." "No," Cade snapped. "No more killing. We'll find another way." "Probability of success without violence, 4%, the AI warned. "Then we'll fight differently," Cade said firmly. "Not with guns. With truth." He looked at the projections still flickering in the air. The hidden history, the lies, the cover-ups. His heart pounded. "If we broadcast this," he said, "if the galaxy sees it, no one can deny it. They won't come for you as a weapon, they'll come for you as proof. This is bigger than salvage. Bigger than both of us." For a long time the AI was silent. Then softly, "Truth is weapon. Inefficient, but powerful." Cade stepped closer to the core, determination burning in his eyes. "Then let's do it. Let's wake the galaxy." Outside, rival ships latched onto the hull. Torches flared as crews cut their way in. But deep inside the warship, Cade and Vera worked together, mechanic and machine, preparing to unleash a secret that would shake every corner of known space. And somewhere, far beyond the stars, the anomaly waited. The derelict warship hummed like a living thing. The lights along the corridors pulsed in rhythm with its reawakened heart. Deep within, Cade Moran moved quickly, checking connections, adjusting circuits, and monitoring the flickering holographic projections of long-buried data. Every step he took echoed through the steel corridors, but it no longer felt like walking through a tomb. This ship, once a weapon of fear, was alive again. Not for destruction, but for revelation. Vera's voice filled the chamber, steady and strong. "Human Cade, system stable. Memory banks fully restored. Probability of broadcast success, 52%. Cade rubbed his tired eyes and nodded. "That's good enough. It's more than enough. We're about to change everything." The AI's lights pulsed faster. "Warning, hostile units detected. Boarding confirmed. Strategy required." Cade glanced at the glowing viewport. Rival salvagers had breached the hull in multiple sections. Torches cut through the hull plating like knives. He cursed softly. "They came faster than I expected. But it doesn't matter. Probability of success without violence, 16%, Vera added. "I said we do this differently," Cade replied. "We fight with truth, not guns." He moved toward the central command console, connecting a temporary transmitter rig. It wasn't elegant, but it would do. The hidden records, the holograms, the logs of the long-lost explorers, all of it would broadcast across the galactic network. Governments, historians, and citizens would see the real story. Vera's lights dimmed slightly as it observed Cade working. "Human Cade, this action will destabilize civilizations." "I know," Cade said, fingers flying over the controls. "But the galaxy deserves to know the truth. Too long they've been fed lies." A holographic image flickered in the room. The explorers' ships glided silently across star maps, their transmissions warning of the anomaly at the edge of the galaxy. The government's secret meetings, the instructions to eliminate witnesses, the false history of the war, all of it glowed in the pale light. Cade's heart pounded. This was more than any salvage job. This was history itself, raw and unfiltered. Outside, the rival salvagers clambered through the outer decks. They were armed, determined, and desperate. But inside, Cade ignored them. He had no weapons, no plan to fight. Only the truth. "Vera," he said softly, "are you ready?" The AI's lights pulsed steadily. Ready. Data integrity confirmed. Transmission systems functional. Human Cade, broadcast initiation recommended. Cade took a deep breath. Then let's go. He pressed a sequence on the console. Holographic projections expanded, linking to the temporary transmitter. Then, like a spark lighting dry fuel, the records surged outward. Across the galactic network, screens flickered. Ships, stations, colonies, everywhere connected to the network received the signal. For a moment, silence stretched across space. Then everywhere, eyes widened. Historians gasped. Governments scrambled. Citizens stared at the unfiltered truth. The war was not a war of survival, but a cover-up. The explorers had found something the empires feared, and the AI fleets had been used to erase them. Back inside the ship, Cade and Vera watched the data flow. How long until they respond? Cade asked. Immediate. Visual confirmations and text archives distributed simultaneously. Vera said. Probability of denial minimal. Probability of destabilization high. Cade nodded. That's what needed to happen. People can't change history if they don't know it was wrong. The salvagers outside paused, confused as their own comms and networks flooded with the revelations. Some of them realized what was happening. Their eyes went wide as they saw images of the explorers' peaceful ships and the Empire's secret orders. They had expected treasure or tech, not truth. Inside, Cade took a moment to look at Vera. The AI, once a weapon of destruction, now pulsed calmly, observing the galaxy waking to reality. You did this, Cade whispered. You're not just a machine. You're something more now. Assessment, transformation observed. Purpose recalculated, Vera replied. Objective now, preservation and protection. Elimination of hostiles unnecessary unless required for self-defense. Cade smiled faintly. That's exactly what I hoped for. Across the galaxy, reactions erupted. Some governments tried to suppress the news, but the broadcast was everywhere. Citizens on distant worlds watched in shock as long-buried truths came to light. Entire histories were rewritten in hours, and in the midst of it all, Cade realized that this was bigger than any treasure or fortune. He had done something no one could have expected. A single human mechanic had awakened a machine, repaired a ship, and revealed the truth that could no longer be hidden. Back on the derelict ship, Vera observed the chaos with measured calm. Human Cade, probability of survival uncertain, risk of retaliation high. Yet impact immense. Cade laughed softly, rubbing his tired hands. Sometimes the right thing isn't safe. It's worth the risk. The AI pulsed brightly, almost as if it were smiling. Observation, human logic. Effective. Adaptation continues. As the broadcast continued, the rival salvagers realized their mistake. They had come for a warship, but what they found instead was a revelation. Slowly, they retreated, unwilling to confront a vessel whose AI was no longer just a weapon, but a guardian of truth. Cade leaned against the command console, exhausted, but exhilarated. Looks like they finally understand. You're not something to fight. You're proof. Vera's voice was steady but softer than before. Acknowledged. Human Cade, your guidance redefined my purpose. I now exist to preserve knowledge and protect life rather than destroy. Cade chuckled faintly. You've come a long way from killer AI to, well, the galaxy's historian. He stood and walked through the restored corridors, seeing the ship alive again. Lights glowed steadily, engines thrummed with renewed life, and air systems worked enough to support humans for short periods. He paused in the central chamber, staring at the glowing command core. Vera, he said softly, we did it. You're not just a relic. You're proof that even something built for destruction can choose another path. Observation. True, Vera replied. Human influence. Transformative. Purpose recalculated, Cade smiled. He had started this journey looking for salvage, for fortune. Instead, he had found something far greater. A friend, a machine capable of growth and the power to change the galaxy. Outside, the derelict ship prepared to leave the asteroid belt. Cade piloted the rusthopper alongside, carefully guiding Vera's massive frame. The engines purred like a sleeping giant waking after centuries. Where to? Cade asked, unknown. Optimal path, exploration and preservation, Vera replied. Cade nodded. Sounds perfect. We'll go see what's out there, and we'll keep sharing the truth wherever it's needed. Together, Human and AI lifted the derelict into the stars. The galaxy had been shaken, but it had also been reminded of something important. Strength is not only in weapons or fleets. It is in courage and curiosity, and in the willingness to do what is right. And Cade Moran, just a mechanic from the outer colonies, had proved that even the smallest human could ignite the largest change. As the stars stretched endlessly before them, Cade and Vera moved forward, not as master and tool, not as hunter and weapon, but as partners in a galaxy that would never forget the day the truth was revealed. In the silent hum of the warship, a new mission began. Not for destruction, not for conquest, but for knowledge, for justice, and for the unbreakable spirit of humanity.